This is the BBC.
This podcast is supported by advertising outside the UK.
Tired of ads interrupting your favorite show? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Download the Amazon Music app or visit amazon.com/ad-free sports. That's amazon.com/ad-free sports to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime members. Some shows may have ads.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous two-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Better maternal nutrition is associated with better child cognitive outcomes in terms of memory, cognition, concentration, sustained attention.
Providing your children with the best start to life can't just begin in pregnancy. It really needs to start from childhood and particularly in adolescence.
I think the most important thing is to not get out the cat of nine tails. Arm yourself with the information. See it as an opportunity to nourish yourself as well as your baby. This is the start of your baby's relationship with food.
I'm currently 36 weeks pregnant, today actually. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling overall good, but now I'm at the stage where it would be nice if it came out very soon.
Are you ready to meet him?
I am certainly ready to meet him.
Why were you interested in making a programme about pregnancy and eating and what to eat?
I found it just generally quite confusing because you're told on the one hand, you should eat healthy, as we all should all the time. And on the other hand, you're told, don't be too hard on yourself. You'll have these intense cravings and take it easy. And those two things, they're opposites. So which one should rule, the head or the heart? And also just throughout this whole process, I feel like there's not really been like a sit down with a medical professional or anyone just being like specific. I would say what is clear though is what I shouldn't eat. The list of things I shouldn't put in my body has been burned into my brain. Things like smoked salmon, cured meats, alcohol, all the things I want to eat, basically. I think that's quite clear, the negative side, but the positive side of what you should eat, I think is quite questionable.
I'm Jaega Wise and this is the Food Programme. Today I'm looking into pregnancy and nutrition, what I should be eating and why. And to all the men listening, this is about you as well.
There are two reasons why fathers are important. One is a biological reason.
The other? It's more social. We'll hear more from Professor Keith Godfrey shortly. But first, there's someone at the door.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Jaega. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So how far are you?
I am 36 weeks today.
Oh wow. So
Henrietta Norton is a nutritional therapist who specialises in fertility and pregnancy. She runs the company Wild Nutrition, which makes supplements. She's also written a book which shows you can get a lot of the nutrients you need during pregnancy from the food you eat. I invited her to my home to do some cooking. Like sleeping is an issue, especially because the baby seems to enjoy me sleeping only on my left side. I feel like throughout this pregnancy, my body's just gone a bit haywire, and there are things that my body is doing. That's frankly weird. Nosebleeds is a really good example. Yes. I can count the amount of nosebleeds pre-pregnancy I've had on one hand, and then now I seem to get them all the time. Yes. But that's just one of a myriad of physical changes. I mean, how much stress is the body under?
Enormous amount of stress. And the most clever thing I think about the body when we're pregnant is that the baby is very, very protected. And what it will do, particularly if you're deficient in nutrients, is it will draw your stores of your nutrients. So it's your body that will experience the deficiency, not the baby per se, but it's really how you experience your pregnancies. I mean, for some people, it's the first time that they become really aware of their body. And you were saying that strange things are happening to it. Nosebleeds, we have changes to our blood pressure. We have changes to estrogen and the membranes that are found in our nose and in our gut and in our eyes. We might find that we get drier eyes, or we get changes to our digestive function. All of these things start to occur, but they are signs that you need to listen to. So that might mean that you just need to make sure that you're supporting your iron levels, for example, if you're getting regular nosebleeds.
Which they did recommend, actually, so I'm actually on iron. Iron. And speaking of vitamins, there is so much out there in terms of what you should and shouldn't take. So I've very much tried to stick to the NHS line as a trusted source, folic acid and vitamin D. But there are so many brands out there that are telling me that I need to be taking more vitamins. Do I?
I mean, could be a very long answer, but the short answer is yes, because the way that nutrients work in the body and in nature are that they come as an orchestra. In order for your body to utilise vitamin D, for example, you need to make sure that you've got plenty of calcium, you've got plenty of iodine, you've got plenty of vitamin K and some of the other trace minerals in order for your body to be able to utilise that vitamin D.
So I suppose we could be taking supplements, or we could supplement our diet, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, that is the philosophy. Diet first, always. Whole food diet is the most important thing. I'm going to show you how to make a brown rice kedgeree that includes all of the different food groups that I think your body needs, particularly as you're in your last trimester.
Excellent.
Kedgeree is a dish of curry-flavoured rice and smoked fish, and is often served with boiled eggs and parsley. Henrietta is using brown rice, undyed smoked haddock and coconut oil. She's also adding some turmeric, spinach and tomato puree.
Tomato puree is just an amazing thing. You can use it as a spread on toast, with sprinkle some dried herbs on it or some salt and pepper. It's a really, really rich source of vitamin C and also a group of plant chemicals called carotenoids, particularly something called lycopene, and what they are really important for is wound healing and healthy cell production. So particularly important when you're getting ready for birth as well.
So this is brown rice. I don't often eat brown rice.
What brown rice is really rich in is a group of vitamins called the B vitamins. It's a really good source of folic acid, folate, which you mentioned that you were recommended to take at the beginning of pregnancy. Actually, it's important all the way through. A source of folic acid that is found in food is called folate, and what we know is that transports itself much more easily through the placenta than artificially generated folic acid, synthetic folic acid. So, we know that it's important for reducing the risk of things like neural tube defects, but it's also really important for our mental health as well. Our risk of things like antenatal depression, so this is when you're in the early stages of pregnancy, but also postnatal depression as well. So in fact, folic acid is now being quite heavily studied at the moment for many mental health conditions.
So even outside of pregnancy and having babies.
Exactly.
It's interesting. In pregnancy, your hormones are all over the place. You may be getting cravings. How much significance should you place on a great diet? How guilty should you feel? It's more the question. For that late night chocolate binge, when your body is telling you, I need cake.
Listen, I think the most important thing is to not get out the cat of nine tails, is to absolutely be kind to yourself. Particularly in that first trimester, it is a very critical window, but at the same time, it can be the time when all you want to do is to eat chips, because your body is going through what it perceives to be physiological stress. So it's doing the best that you can, and it's absolutely not about giving yourself a hard time. I think this is particularly important around a lot of women in clinic concerned about putting on too much weight. A healthy weight is really important in pregnancy. You don't need to eat a huge amount more. But this is not the time to be worrying about how many calories you're taking in necessarily. If you are a healthy woman and you eat well and mindfully through your pregnancy, don't worry about springing back into a pair of jeans that you wore before pregnancy within the first 6 months. Just allow your body to do what it needs to do.
Henrietta Norton from Wild Nutrition makes eating well look easy. But as I know, it's not always doable. Back to my chat with producer Natalie.
Can you talk to me about the guilty feelings that mums-to-be have?
Yeah, I do feel guilty. If you've eaten some fast food, there's a little bit of hide the wrapper feeling, or, oh, I don't want anyone to see me eat this. Because you know you shouldn't be doing it. You know there are other options. But I would say it's just so easy to do. And I think comfort is the key word. So when you're feeling tired and sore, and food can be really comforting sometimes.
I think as well, I think in the first trimester, particularly for me, I felt extremely tired. And if you feel like that and you're hungry as well, I think standing up to stir, something that takes half an hour to cook, it's not really feasible, is it?
But cooking is not just half an hour to cook. You have to mentally think about what you're going to cook. You got to go to the shops, and then you got to do your
prep.
You got to do your prep, and you got to cook, and that's after being at work for a long day. So it's the whole thing sometimes. And if it's cold outside, I completely understand why you're in the headspace of, I'll just order something, or I might not eat the best on this particular day.
Yes, I know that there are things that I could be doing to make sure I don't end up ordering unhealthy foods, but I'm not alone here. A recent trial involving more than 1,700 women who were trying to conceive in the UK, Singapore and New Zealand found the majority had low levels of the key nutrients needed for pregnancy. Nutrients we should be getting from our diets. Keith Godfrey, a professor of epidemiology and human development at the University of Southampton, led the research.
What we found is that 9 in 10 of the women had blood levels of many important vitamins that were lower than internationally recognised levels for health. And these vitamins included folic acid, riboflavin, vitamin B12 and vitamin D, which are all needed to support the mother's health during pregnancy and important for the unborn baby's development.
Keith went on to explain that this can cause more problems for women who try for or have a second baby.
It's been known for a long time that after delivery, as a generalisation, which of course doesn't apply to everybody, that the mother's diets tend to be of lower quality. And that may be because the concentration tends to be on the baby after birth. And we also know that during pregnancy, the baby has high requirements for specific fatty acids and for iron, and that it takes quite some months after birth for the mother to replenish her stores. So if she becomes pregnant soon after, then her stores may not be replenished.
Professor Godfrey, like Henrietta Norton before him, agrees the best way for women to up their nutrients is through their diet. But
the challenge is that modern diets often lead to an inadequate vitamin intake, and both stronger education about vitamin-rich foods and changes in the food system are likely to be needed to lessen the need for supplements going forwards.
Professor Keith Godfrey, who was the co-author of the NIPA trial and based at the University of Southampton. Last year, the chartered psychologist Kimberly Wilson wrote the book Unprocessed, all about the impact of our diets on our brain health.
For me, mental health starts at conception, so it's really about understanding the quality of nutrition for women, people of childbearing age, and the kinds of brains we're building for the future.
Kimberly says that although our diets here in the West are energy rich, some of the key nutrients we're low on are vital for her area of interest. One of those nutrients is iodine.
We know that iodine, which is found most abundantly in seaweed and seafood, is essential for kickstarting brain development in utero. We know that people who grow up in areas of low iodine availability have permanently suppressed IQ. The World Health Organization says iodine deficiency is the leading cause of preventable brain damage worldwide. Yet women are recommended folic acid and vitamin D, but not iodine, not omega-3, which we know makes up a huge proportion of the membrane of the brain cell. And omega-3, the DHA, is rate limiting for neuronal architecture, which means if you don't get enough of it, the literal structure of the brain is compromised.
Another nutrient Kimberly Wilson says doesn't get enough attention is choline.
There's a big scientific conference every few years around choline, and the recommendation is that it should be in all preconception and pregnancy supplements because it's so important for brain development. And mostly it's not in the supplements because it's a bulky compound and it's very difficult to add to the formulation. But even when we're talking about choline, we don't have a proper RDA. We know that pregnant women should be having more, but we know that basically everyone is insufficient to start with. So again, that's another nutrient, a recommendation, whether it comes through supplementation or through food, and ideally it would be coming through food. The recommendations about these key nutrients just aren't getting down to patients and people planning pregnancy where it's most important.
Chartered psychologist Kimberly Wilson, author of Unprocessed: How the Food We Eat is Fueling Our Mental Health Crisis. The National Institute for Health and Care Excellence says it's currently in the process of updating its guidance. But from the documents we've seen, guidance around these nutrients is unlikely to be included, although there may be changes to the amounts of folic acid and vitamin D recommended for women who are pregnant and overweight or obese. Between 2015 and 2017, that was more than half of all the women who gave birth in England. In my kitchen, nutritional therapist Henrietta Norton is preparing the smoked haddock that will go into the kedgeree she's making us.
So what we've done is we put some haddock into 600 ml of boiling water, and we're just going to let that sort of simmer. The beautiful thing about haddock is that it's really rich in protein. So protein is needed by you and by your baby to develop muscle fibres and to ferry taxis around the body as well. So it's every single element of growth for your baby requires protein and the amino acids that are inside that. So amino acids are the sort of building blocks inside protein. The other thing that fish is really rich in is calcium. So calcium, we know, is a really important mineral during pregnancy.
So could you use any fish for this?
You could use any fish. So cod is another really good example. But actually another really good substitute would be just some oily fish of some sort, because haddock does contain omega-3, but the cold water fish contains a lot of omega-3, and omega-3 is incredibly important when your baby is going through significant development of their brain in the first trimester and the last trimester.
I feel like maybe I've not been doing my best. Maybe I've not been eating enough omega-3.
Oh, no, the thing is, it's doing the best that you can, and I think that's the important thing. A lot of it comes down to information, but also knowing how to apply it as well.
Are there any fish that you shouldn't be eating?
So
you hear a lot about things like mercury content.
Yeah, exactly. So omega-3 fats that I've just spoken about are actually found in rich amounts in oily fish, so cold water oily fish, things like salmon and sardines, mackerel. The only thing with those fish is that they love taking in fats, which is why they're so good for us. But that means they also retain a lot of the heavy metal pollutants that were found in the sea as well. So the NHS recommendations is that you shouldn't have more than 2 portions of oily fish a week to make sure that you're getting in the right amount of omega-3s, but not too much of the less wanted pollutants that can be found in the fish as well. So if you're supplementing with omega-3, which I would really highly recommend, then you would make sure that you're getting in the right sources.
I like eating fish, but I don't have it that regularly. But what about women who avoid it altogether? Chartered psychologist Kimberly Wilson again.
A well-planned plant-based diet is absolutely fine. The concern is that lots of people, and particularly young women who tend to be the demographic that is more likely to move to a plant-based or plant-exclusive diet, aren't really understanding what they're losing in terms of nutrition when they shift to these ways of eating. Most of the concern is often around iron and protein, and you can absolutely, if you work around combinations of your grains and beans and things like that, get adequate intakes of those nutrients. But for example, B12 is found almost exclusively in animal foods, and there are about 40 different case studies now in the research literature demonstrating brain atrophy in infants who were born to and then exclusively breastfed by women who are on vegetarian or vegan diets and not supplementing. So these are parents who are very thoughtful and caring and loving of their children, but haven't either had that information or understood how important it is to be taking these supplemental nutrients when you're not getting them through the diet.
Kimberly Wilson. So how new is all this information, and why haven't I heard about it at my own antenatal appointments? In 2011, Radio 4 broadcast a series called The First 1000 Days, presented by Dr. Mark Porter, which explained how early childhood and developments in the womb impact on longer-term health. It included an interview with the late Professor David Barker, who came up with the Barker theory, the suggestion that the risk of developing conditions like diabetes in adulthood is linked to nutrition in the womb.
What this says is that the passage of nutrients from normal, healthy mothers to normal, healthy babies has profound long-term implications. So a new picture of chronic disease has emerged, and this is a picture which embraces not just coronary heart disease, but other diseases like stroke, like diabetes, like cancer. We're talking about cognitive function, emotional predispositions, anxiety, for example, depression, and we're talking about lifespan.
Professor of Epidemiology at the University of Southampton, Dr. David Barker, speaking to Radio 4 in 2011. Professor Keith Godfrey, who worked on the Nipper trial, used to work with him.
David Barker championed something called the developmental origins of health and disease concept, whereby the environment, particularly the nutritional environment in which an individual grew up in before they were born and in the early years, had a long-lasting effect on their risk of many of the common health conditions that the NHS is being challenged with at the moment. And what we're starting to see now is the sorts of policy measures which actually could improve the development of the next generation of babies and support both mothers and fathers to be in providing their children with the best start to life.
These policies include Healthy Start vouchers, which help pregnant women who receive benefits pay for healthy food and milk. And in 2022, the government set up the Maternity Disparities Task Force to work on tackling the gaps in some areas, particularly outcomes for women from ethnic minority communities and those living in deprived areas. Professor Godfrey also believes it's important that families understand how important a father's role can be in this too.
There are two reasons why fathers are important. One is a biological reason. The father's diet, lifestyle changes the molecular processes in the sperm that go to generate a fertilized egg. And those processes have a lasting memory throughout the lifespan of the individual. The second is that supporting partners is a really critical thing. It's absolutely wrong that many women feel a sole responsibility for pregnancy and parenthood. It should be a shared responsibility, and supporting women with healthy diets, healthy behaviours, and with child rearing, that's something which is undervalued in today's society.
Professor Keith Godfrey. Kimberly Wilson, psychologist and author who's written about eating well for brain health, believes the current system is unfair.
When we think about the quality of maternal nutrition and the evidence that indicates that better maternal nutrition is associated with better child cognitive outcomes in terms of memory, cognition, concentration, sustained attention, reduced conditions of inattention, then we need to be really thinking about fairness. Is it fair that only the children of the very wealthy are most likely to have the better neurological outcomes because their parents have had the means and the options and the opportunity? I don't necessarily think that's fair. And I think it's really about making sure that the information and the resources are available for everybody so that no child is disadvantaged. And I think it really is about equality and justice, because it's about actually levelling up. It's actually about making it a level playing field from the beginning.
Kimberly Wilson. There are charities like the First Steps Nutrition Trust doing work to help, but as my experience shows, perhaps these messages are just not out there as much as they could be. In Southampton, Professor Godfrey tells me about a project, part organised by the university, called Life Lab, which is working with secondary school children to spread the message about how lifestyle choices now can have an impact on future offspring. BBC Two's Horizon went there a few years ago for a programme about obesity, presented by Dr. Giles Yeo.
So here we have sample 1 is the DNA from a mother who had a healthy diet while she was pregnant, and the DNA from her offspring, and you can see it's identical. And then we have the DNA from a mother who didn't have such a healthy diet, and the DNA from her offspring, and what do you notice? The patterns are different.
The changed pattern means that the baby's gene has been altered by the mother's poor diet, putting them at greater risk of obesity.
So here we have DNA from a father who had a healthy diet, and his offspring's DNA from a father who had an unhealthy diet, and his offspring's DNA. And again, you can see that the patterns are different. So kind of at a really simple level, the message we're trying to get across is that actually what you do during your life can change your DNA, but not only for yourselves, but also for your future families.
I'm not trying to scare you guys.
Well, it's kind of scary, but then you can also use it as a motivation to maybe eat healthy or be a bit more active in your lifetime.
Life Lab has been running at Southampton General Hospital since 2013. To date, more than 14,000 secondary and college students have visited.
What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to add this.
Back in my kitchen, fertility nutritional therapist Henrietta Norton is finishing off making our lunch. Smoked haddock kedgeree with spinach and boiled eggs.
And this is where you can add in a dollop of yoghurt if you want. Yoghurt from cow's milk, or you can add in goat. Some people find that goat's milk is easier for them to tolerate. So either one is another very good source of vitamin B12, iron, and protein and calcium.
Should we tuck in?
Yeah.
That's lovely. It's creamy. It's really delicious. And interestingly, doesn't feel that healthy. It's comforting. Yeah. I think it's the goat's yogurt has added like a element of creamy richness that feels dirty.
But not too goaty, I hope.
No, it doesn't taste goaty at all. Excellent, good job.
Oh, good. I'm so pleased.
The thing is, the time of you eating meat and 2 veg every single day, I think is largely gone. So it's probably quite different to my parents' or grandparents' generation, just what we eat.
I think it's a time issue as well. A lot of us are time poor. But hopefully that you've seen that, 25 minutes, what would it take us? 35 minutes, 25 of which was just the rice boiling away. It's 10 minutes to prepare. It was actually really, really simple.
I think the key thing for me is I want to do a good job.
Yeah, and you already are. The most important thing to your baby and you is love and safety, and it being close to you and you being able to feed it in whatever way that is what it needs. Everything else is kind of periphery, really. So be kind to yourself. Yeah.
It's been 3.5 weeks since we did that recording in my kitchen, and things right now are a little different. Introducing to the world baby Teddy, 9 pounds 8 ounces, born on the 3rd of January 2024. He's happy, he's healthy, and he's mesmerising. And to be honest, all of those niggles, what to eat, what to not eat, all those issues, they just feel like they've melted away.
Hello, I'm Dr. Michael Mosley, and in my BBC Radio 4 podcast, Just One Long Thing, I'm meeting the world's leading experts to discuss the best ways to live well. From talking to strangers to boost happiness, to aging disgracefully to live longer. I'll be learning the top tips that the experts swear by to maximise your health and well-being. And As this is a Just One Thing special, I'll end each interview by asking our expert to choose the one personal health hack that they would say is the single most effective way you can improve your life. To benefit your brain and body in ways you might not expect, here's one thing you can do right now. Subscribe to the podcast on BBC Sounds.
Get the best workout with the best-kept secret in fitness. Hydro, the state-of-the-art at-home rower. Hydro engages 86% of your muscles, delivering the ultimate full-body workout in just 20 minutes. From advanced to beginner, Hydro has over 4,000 classes that are shot all over the world and are taught by Olympians and world-class athletes. For a 30-day risk-free trial with free standard shipping, go to hydro.com and use code ROW500 to save up to $500. That's HYDROW.com, code ROW500.
Tired of ads interrupting your favorite show? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Download the Amazon Music app or visit amazon.com/ad-free sports. That's amazon.com/ad-free sports to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime members. Some shows may have ads.